You're listening to This Side of the Ceiling. Join us as we open up the Bible and invite the Holy Spirit to teach us. I'm Jill.
And I'm Kelsey. As Christians, we've been told that in this world we will have trouble. But we take heart that God has given us everything we need for life and godliness on this side of the ceiling. Hello, welcome back to This Side of the Ceiling. And today we are going to talk about another encounter with Jesus. I love watching these encounters with Jesus because he's such a great teacher.
He is, because no encounter's the same.
Yeah, and he is ready to teach people, but also ready to love people where they are.
Yeah, and it's just so neat to get insight into some connections and relationships he had.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about some deep ones.
Right, yeah. Today we're going to talk about Mary and Martha and Lazarus, his close friends that we find out about them.
Yeah, I wish we knew the background, but they seem to be family friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love how The Chosen kind of represents them as the place he would stay. He's excited to go there. And,
right, yeah.
We get insight into their personalities.
Yeah.
You feel like they pop up every once in a while.
And I think they're excited to have him.
Oh, yes.
And expecting him.
Yeah.
So today we're going to start in Luke chapter 10 and look at this relationship and this encounter with Jesus several times when he encounters Mary and Martha and Lazarus. So we'll start in Luke 10:38.
Okay. Now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went up to him and said, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her."
Yeah, such a profound story here. Lots of things to unpack.
Right.
But I want to talk about Martha first. So it tells us that Martha opened her home, which would have been a little bit unusual.
Yeah.
Because it's a woman. But she's got siblings. Mary is probably a younger sister. She's probably the oldest of these siblings.
Yeah. Seems like they all live there. You kind of assume that.
Right.
But it's her house.
Yeah. But probably it doesn't sound like there are many parents involved in this situation because she's in charge. It seems like she's in charge. And, but we're told in another place in Scripture that Jesus loved Martha. And so I love that we're told that he loved her because he wasn't...
He knew them.
Yeah.
He knew their personalities.
Right, and he wasn't
Scolding her.
Yeah, that's the word I was trying to think of. So he wasn't scolding her. He said, "Martha, Martha," but notice that she was distracted.
Yeah, which is so easy to do. I mean, I relate to Martha, and I've also been in those situations where you're in charge of, Jesus never really showed up by himself. So I'm sure he had a ragtag people, and Martha's got to feed them. I mean, someone has to do the work.
Right.
And so, that is frustrating when you're in there trying to get things ready and you feel like you're missing out on the fun.
Yeah, and it reminds me of when we taught this in Honduras through an interpreter because they couldn't speak English and we couldn't speak Spanish. And so I remember you and I thinking, are they getting it? I don't know. And so, we went back and forth with this story with the interpreter. We'd say a little bit, the interpreter would say a little bit, and then so you just never know what the interpretation's going to be. And so after we were done, we opened it up to questions, and one of the women there, through the interpreter says, "So who's going to make the tortillas?" It's like, okay, they're getting it because the work has to be done.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's Jesus saying, don't do the work.
Yeah.
I think he's saying, don't be distracted.
Or come in here and sit down. The work will get done later. We don't have to have it right now.
Right.
Yeah. It's a good this is just such a good lesson. I remember when because he says, there's only one thing that matters.
Right.
And, we used to do that in Bible class where the older women are teaching the younger women, and they would say over and over, make sure you're keeping the main thing the main thing. The main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And
right.
I feel like that's kind of what Jesus is saying. He said, there are lots of stuff someone's got to get supper ready. Someone's got to pour the drinks and wash the dishes and wash the feet. But there's only one thing important right now. I'm teaching. Come sit down,
right.
Come learn. And I do think that, this is a big deal that Jesus doesn't tell Mary to go in the kitchen.
Right.
Because I do think that the women, especially in that time, were not sitting at the feet learning like the men. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, this would have been just very unheard of to say, no, I'm teaching Mary and she can learn. Right. We can let the women learn too. So this is bold, Right. Jesus was breaking down barriers.
Yeah, and Martha was following protocol.
Right.
To what they should have been doing. But I do think it is a red flag when you are serving and you're irritable, you're unhappy, and you start to question Jesus's motives.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus, don't you care?
Yeah.
So she gets suspicious of Jesus, and so I think that's where he's redirecting her. Martha,
That's so true. I hadn't even really thought about it till you said that, but we're so quick to go, this didn't happen, you don't care.
Right.
We jump straight right to, Peter did it in the boat, to do you not care? We're about to drown.
Yeah.
Do you not care? And Jesus, he does care.
Right.
He cares, and he says, come sit down at my feet. I care so much about you. I want to tell you this.
Right.
I don't care about having supper at 5:00.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he doesn't say, he says, one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better. He doesn't say that's not good. It's just, it's between the good and the better.
Right.
It's the choice between the good and the better. So I do think we're told he loves Martha. So this isn't a scolding and she's in trouble. This is a refocusing. Let's choose what's better. And Mary has chosen what is better.
Yeah, this is one of those places you wish there were 2 more verses. You wish it said, so Martha sat down by Mary and they all listened to Jesus.
Yeah.
But we don't have that. But maybe that's what happened.
Right.
Maybe Martha said, you're right. And she sat down and Jesus told a story and they laughed.
Right.
Yeah. I hope that's what happened.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to look at another encounter. But before we do that, I wanted to make one more point about Mary. It's never in vain when we spend time with Jesus.
Yeah, that's true.
Time cannot be taken from you. And when you spend your time with Jesus, it's never in vain.
Mm-hmm.
So it just reminds me that spending time with Jesus is something that can never be taken away from you. It's deposited into you when you do that, and so it's a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to go to another story with Mary and Martha in John chapter 11. And so what has happened is their brother Lazarus has died, and Jesus didn't come right away.
Purposely, it looks like.
Yeah, and he knew that he had died, but it says he stayed, 2 more days?
Yeah, he knew he was sick and he didn't come.
Oh, he knew he was sick. And so we're going to start in John chapter 11, verse 17. You want to read that?
Yeah. Now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, but Mary remained seated in the house. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, Your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world." When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying in private, "The teacher's here. He's calling for you." And when she heard it, she rose quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were with her in the house, consoling her, saw Mary rise quickly and go out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Now when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet, saying to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit and greatly troubled. And he said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him?"
So I love this story. Just, Martha and Mary both approach Jesus and say the exact same thing.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
"Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Yet Jesus responds to each of them differently. Practical Martha, he responds to her in the way that says, "Your brother will rise again." And then Martha goes beyond just the here and now. She goes to the, "Okay, yes, I know, Lord."
The spiritual analogy,
Yes.
which is the opposite of what everyone else usually does. Usually it's
Right.
like, "No, I'm not talking about real seed. I'm doing spiritual analogy."
Right.
And Martha goes, "Oh, the spiritual analogy, yes." And Jesus goes, "No, I'm actually talking, this time I'm talking about really, really."
Yeah, and Jesus even says, "I am the resurrection and life," and she proclaims it. That,
Yeah,
yes,
one of the
it's
first
gonna be
people that
you.
proclaims that, I think, here.
Yeah, and he says, "I am the resurrection and the life," and that's Jesus's answer to her. Like, "I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who comes to me shall not die." And she proclaims, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is to come into the world." He allows her to proclaim this. He even asks her, "Do you believe this?" And she proclaims that, which for Martha, that's the comfort she needed.
She needed truth.
She needed truth. She needed Jesus to comfort her with,
This is not the end. We're
Right.
gonna,
yeah, and asking her the question. It's back to you. Do you believe this? And then her proclamation of that, I'm sure, calmed her down. It
Yes.
just brought a peace to her spirit that she needed at that moment. Such a great way to respond to Martha specifically.
Yeah, because Jesus knew Martha and knew what she
Exactly.
needed.
Yeah, exactly. And he responds the correct way for
Right,
everyone.
right.
Personally, very personally. And then after that, Martha goes and tells Mary, he's here. Mary runs to him. And so when Mary reached him, again, she says, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." And it tells us that she was weeping. Not practical Mary, it's more like
Emotional Mary.
And what does she do? She gets at his feet, where she is. She falls at his feet, and she cries. And the Lord asks, "Where have you laid him?" He doesn't say, "I'm the resurrection and the life." He doesn't.
He doesn't do
for
that.
her.
Yeah, because that's not what she needed.
Yeah, she needed him to just be with her in the moment. "Where have you laid him? I'm with you in this moment."
Show me.
Yeah, and then he weeps with her.
Even though he knows he's about to raise him.
Yeah,
But what Martha needed was someone to cry with her.
yeah, what Mary needed.
Yeah.
And so
And Martha needed the opposite. He
Right,
knows exactly
yeah.
what.
I know. I love that about this situation, especially since they both approached him the same exact way. But they needed something completely different.
And I think that's the lesson for us is there's, so many times I want to just, let me figure this out and then I'll be good and I'll just go on and do it all the time. And Jesus doesn't have a cookie cutter reaction with everybody. It's, no, you need to listen.
Right.
And you need to be in relationship with people to know, does this person need me to speak truth to them? Does this person need me to just sit down and hold them and cry? Mm-hmm. If you're a mother that you've had more than one child, you realize they're different.
Yeah.
You have one child that you can just look at them and they're sorry, they're done, they're
Right.
tears. You don't need to do anything. And then another child will look, doesn't do anything.
Right.
You're going to have to find something else. So I just love that idea with Jesus.
And I get stuck in what's fair, what's even, what's fair with all of my children or all, everyone that I come in contact with, all my students or whatever. And Jesus didn't respond like that. It wasn't about that.
Well, and it's not easy because I'm going to have to know people. I'm going to have to listen for cues. I'm going to have to think, well, I could do this or I could do this. Which does this person need right now? Mm-hmm. And so it is reading that person to know what they need.
Yeah.
There's one more story I'd like to go to about Mary and Martha before we leave them. And it's just over in the very next chapter. So Jesus raises Lazarus from the dead, and it's many people believe, and it's wonderful. And then in the next chapter, chapter 12, it says 6 days before the Passover. So we're getting really close to the time where
Right.
Jesus is about to die. And he's been giving clues, but the disciples aren't getting it.
No. They're even saying, no, that will never happen.
Yeah, they don't get it. So I'm in John chapter 12, and it says 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served. Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at the table. Mary, therefore, took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard and anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. And it goes on to say that Judas says she should have sold this and made the money off of it. But Jesus rebukes Judas, and he says to him, he said, leave her alone so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. For the poor you always have with me, but you do not always have with me. You do not always have me. And I have a footnote in my Bible that says it would be more, or that many transcripts say she intended to keep it for my burial. So here you have Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, and they're kind of all in their places again.
Right.
Martha's serving. Mm-hmm. Lazarus is talking with Jesus, and Mary's at Jesus' feet again.
Right. Yeah.
In all three of these stories, Mary's at his feet.
Right.
She's at his feet teaching. She's at his feet weeping. And now she's at his feet anointing them with expensive perfume and wiping them with her hair.
Right.
And I don't know, but when I saw that footnote and it says, leave her alone, she intended to use this for my burial. Mm-hmm. Who knows if that's what that really means, but it makes me think, if she intended to use it for the funeral, but she's not,
Right.
like had all that listening that Mary'd been doing, did she get it?
Yeah.
Did she he's not going to have a funeral.
Yeah.
We're not going to get to use this. He said he's not dying. I'm going to use it now. Mm-hmm. I just love thinking that maybe Mary gets it and the disciples don't, because she's been listening.
Yeah. And learning. I think Jesus told Martha, come sit here and learn.
Yeah.
For sure.
I've heard people say that would have been so expensive that smell would have still been on him. Possibly.
Right.
Possibly. That it would have lingered. I don't know. Who knows about that? But it's interesting to think.
Certainly would have lingered in her hair.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such an intimate thing, too. To watch dirty feet with her hair in a room full of men, sounds like. Once again, she's not serving.
Right.
But yeah, she is. He washed feet. She's washing feet.
Yeah. Yeah, so Mary sat at his feet in the good times, fell at his feet in the hard times, and worshipped at his feet in the last times.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
May we all be that way.
Thanks Thanks for listening and journeying with us on this side of the ceiling. See you next time.